Prison population rates in Brazil are among the highest in the world. With more than 500,000 men and women behind bars, the country is fourth on the list of most incarcerated people, only behind the U.S., China, and Russia. But here's what's most alarming. Brazilian prison occupancy rates average 172%. That means an average prison holds almost double the number of inmates it can handle. That level of overcrowding makes for terrible conditions, with gang violence and drug trafficking a challenge to control inside. So much so that the country's current Minister of Justice, the man at the helm of the prison system, famously stated in 2010 that he'd rather die than go to jail in Brazil. Our correspondent Stephen Gibbs went inside the country's most overcrowded prison in the southern city of Porto Alegre to see what life is like in a place that's filled to the brim.
A weekday morning in Porto Alegre's central prison. It's high summer and the temperature is over 40 degrees Celsius. As ever, the complex is dangerously overcrowded to more than double its legal capacity. And every day more inmates arrive. Many of this southern city's problems are effectively dumped here in the mistaken hope that they will somehow go away. The man in charge of managing this precarious situation is the prison's director, Lieutenant Colonel Osvaldo da Silva. After a deadly riot in the prison in the 1990s, the military police were sent in on a temporary basis. They've been here ever since.
What is the biggest challenge for running this prison?
The overriding challenge for the prison administration is to do with the number of inmates and the current overcrowding.
Every day this chart listing where the inmates are and where the problems are is updated. That figure should ideally be around 2,000. But this is currently the most overcrowded prison in all Brazil. Those inside include hardened reoffenders, but more than 60%, 2,500 men, are here despite the fact they haven't been sentenced. They're awaiting trial, sometimes for years.
Where are we going now?
The prison director likens this place to a mini-city, with, he says, all that is bad and all that is good in humanity. He was keen to show us the better side of the prison, such as the medical facilities. Here, all arriving inmates are screened for tuberculosis. Down the corridor, there's a dental surgery. Here, a pioneering project where drug-free inmates are encouraged to use music and art to reconnect with the world outside. And the jail has something of a first in Brazil, separate accommodation for transvestite and homosexual prisoners. But most of the jail is nothing like this. In the main blocks, which were cleared out before our visit, up to 8 prisoners share each of these cells. They were designed in the 1950s to hold 2 people. At one point, seeing us, the inmates started shouting that they were short of water. There were areas where the authorities seemed reluctant to go themselves, let alone take us.
One of the criticisms of this prison is that it is controlled inside by gangs. What is your reaction to that criticism?
When people say that gangs command the central prison, I see this as ignorance. If that were the case, permission to visit the prison would have to be given by the gangs, not by us, the management. We, of course, have control and keep control of the central prison. Otherwise, we would not be able to look after 4,500 prisoners with no riots or serious acts of violence.
The director does not deny that gangs exist here. He says that the fact that there are several actually makes his job easier.
Na realidade, existem várias facções.
Actually, there are several gangs, and the fact that there are many means they balance each other out. No gang is dominant over another, and that enables us to keep control in the central prison.
Losing control is a real risk in Brazil's notoriously violent prison system. These images were recorded in January inside a jail in the northeastern city of São Luís. They show a brutal clampdown by the military police there, following a barbaric series of gang murders in which 3 prisoners were decapitated. In this prison, there hasn't been a major riot for several years. Instead, there's an uneasy equilibrium involving the gangs which operate here, the prison authorities, and the city outside. Each of these blocks or galleries has a boss, the person nominated to speak to the prison authorities, but the authorities insist he's not a gang leader.
No control by gangs. All control are by policemen that are here.
The other problem that we've been hearing about is drugs inside the prison, that they're widespread. Are you trying to stop the prisoners getting access to drugs?
Unfortunately, there are many forms that the drugs go here.
The prison was once some distance from the city of Porto Alegre, but now the city has grown around it.
This is the perimeter fence of the prison. What comes over that wall there?
We have a problem here because the other side, this wall, are a street, and the people in the night or in the afternoon go to streets and chow many mobile phones here. Until January, 232 mobile phones are catched by the guards here.
You found 230 mobile phones just in January. And what do the prisoners do with these mobile phones?
They get the mobile phones to communicate with their families and commit crime.
So they use, say they're drug dealers inside the prison, they're using those mobile phones to carry on their business?
Yes, it's possible.
And also you say drugs come over this wall. What kind of drugs?
Cocaine, marijuana, and crack.
But can't you stop it? Can't you just stop people throwing stuff over this wall? I mean, there are no guards in there now. Isn't it something you can stop?
It's very difficult because they are very quickly. They go to the motorcycle and throw fast, they go too fast.
The somewhat lax attitude to drugs inside the prison does seem part of a strategy, a way of calming things down.
The use of drugs as well as cell phones reduces tension inside the prison. It is not ideal, of course it is not, but you need to remember that there are drug addicts here, and a shortage of drugs would likely provoke more acts of violence as a result of their withdrawal symptoms.
It's a logical argument, but if a jail is supposed to be part of society's efforts to reduce crime, something has gone wrong here. Elena Franco works on a project to try to help ex-prisoners adapt to life outside.
Statistically, what happens to most of the prisoners when they leave this jail?
They reoffend. Almost 80% reoffend.
One reason for that is to pay for drugs or even food inside the jail. Prisoners build up large debts to the gang leaders.
Sometimes former prisoners want to come back to work and cannot because they have to pay people inside jail, and with regular works they don't get enough money for this, and they have to rob and sell drugs again.
We spoke to one former prisoner a few days after he was released. He just completed a sentence for drug trafficking. He describes himself as no saint, but he says he was shocked by what he saw inside.
You live crime there. You live crime 24 hours a day. There, you never hear anyone talking about family or about something good that happened to them outside. You only hear talk about killing, stealing, trafficking, stuff like, when I'm out, I'll do it. There's someone who owes me money outside, I'm going to kill them.
The gangs, he says, make every new arrival a nearly irresistible offer.
If you join a gang, they will give you protection to your family outside. They'll support you inside with whatever you need, and it's the same outside too. These are the advantages. The disadvantage is that you will have to work for them. When you leave, you will have to do something for them.
So what is being done to improve things? Gelson Triesleben is the superintendent of all the prisons in Porto Alegre. He is entirely in agreement that the condition of the central prison is unacceptable.
I do not accept the condition of the central prison as they are. The conditions are bad, I would say in some places, really awful. This is due to the deterioration of the building, something which has been going on since 1959, despite the repairs which have been made.
He says 3 new prisons will be built to help alleviate the problem, but suggests the real solution is in the hands of politicians. So we went to speak to the mayor of Porto Alegre, and he also agreed that the prison was a disgrace.
We have a clear understanding of what is going on in the central prison, and I'm not just referring to this government. This goes back many years, is an undignified treatment of prisoners. A prisoner should be deprived of his liberty, but you cannot fundamentally violate his rights, as is happening in that prison. The way out of this is to construct smaller prisons, more decentralized, so we can treat the prisoners in the correct manner. But there is a major contradiction in public opinion. Every time that a governor talks about constructing a new prison with state money, there is enormous resistance from the public. Nevertheless, we need to confront this problem. The central prison, it is something which is shameful for us all.
Over the last 10 years, Brazil has allowed its prison population to double. It's continued to send people to jail, even though it hasn't built the jails to house them. And this is the consequence.